That's the key there. You got the high back chair.
I
You're
do.
looking boss.
Thank you. It's the vibe I was going for, boss.
Don't think in like Solana or Ethereum terms. Think of like AWS, and then we're a decentralized version of that you can build really, really cool things that you can't build on AWS.
Obviously, the decentralized aspect is more, privacy protection. That's a major issue. The real question is, though, isn't it too late? I feel like anyone who's had Facebook, anyone who's had Instagram, I feel like, everything's already out there, like, isn't it?
How the internet computer is addressing that is you can have an internet identity. It's almost like your Google login, except for it's done in a way that you can't track from application to application. So like having control over your data and being able to monetize it is essentially just like NFTs on steroids. And so there's companies who are exploring how they can facilitate creating almost like the NFT of data sets.
So we've gone off topic, I think, 3 times. So I forgot. Okay,
That's a sign of a good podcast, of a good host.
And a great guest.
If you look back in the last 5 years, ChatGPT aside, because that is truly innovative, but there's really not a lot of innovation in the internet, right? Like the biggest thing to come to the internet was TikTok, and that's really just YouTube with shorter videos. Me personally, I think one of the impacts the internet computer is going to have is a shift back towards Bitcoin and building on top of Bitcoin.
AI. I know that's been trending for a very long time.
If you've heard of the alignment problem in AI, is how you get AI to align to human values. Whose human values are we aligning AI to, right? Because if Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, are we aligning it to his values? Because those values are going to be a lot different than maybe like a diverse value set from across the world.
Like, how far do you think that this is all going to go with AI?
I have no idea. And I worry that we will actually know if we've crossed a line. It feels like it's like nighttime. We know there's a cliff somewhere there where once we go too far, we've gone too far, but you don't know where too far is until you're falling down the cliff.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Decoded. I'm your host, Dina Matar, and today we have Kyle Langham, the Director of Data and Analytics of Dfinity Foundation. Hi, Kyle. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Where are you based?
Not far from Washington, D.C. So Dfinity, the foundation's in Switzerland. Wow. I'm on the East Coast of the United States.
How I like to get started is if you can just tell us a little bit about yourself, your personal background, and then how you got into the crypto space, Web3 world, and then what brought you to Dfinity.
Yeah. Kyle Langham, Director of Data and Analytics at Dfinity Foundation. I got into crypto. Well, I've always been into Bitcoin since probably the 2018 timeframe, but really got full-time into crypto the way everyone does. I was working on a COVID vaccine, and that led to where I'm at now. Essentially what happened was I spent my career in pharma, was working at a small vaccine company when the pandemic happened. During that time, we had a strong COVID vaccine, and so we ended up getting $1.6 billion from the US government. One of the stipulations on that was we had to ramp up our cybersecurity because the US government considered the vaccines to be a national security risk. And I was a leader within the IT group there. And so tangentially was involved in basically beefing up our cybersecurity. And what I learned from that was there was no amount of money. We had all the resources you could want. We had access to the top experts in the field, all this money, and yet we still talked about when we are hacked, this is how we need to respond. And it was kind of a wake-up moment for me of just how natively, by design, the internet is insecure, right? That you cannot spend enough money to secure your data. Once you connect your computer to the internet, it is at risk. At that same time, Dominic Williams, who's the founder of Dfinity, really the visionary behind the internet computer, he was talking about the internet computer in exactly those terms of it's an extension of the internet that is, because it's blockchain backed, it's much more secure. You don't need firewalls. You don't need a VPN because you can have the privacy that you as a native function of the internet computer. So really fell down that rabbit hole, and it led me to Dfinity.
That's pretty cool. I have a lot of questions about this whole data and security, but I'll keep that for maybe a bit later. Can you tell us a bit about the internet computer? I know like the ICP hub is quite massive. You guys have Dfinity. You have a lot going on. Can you tell us in simple terms for maybe people who are not so versed in the crypto space. What would the best way for you to explain it be?
Yeah, the easiest way to understand the internet computer is if you just think in terms of like decentralized AWS, Amazon Web Services, or decentralized Google Cloud. It's a way for you to host an entire application on the blockchain. A little bit more like complex would be to describe it as an extension of the internet that's blockchain backed. The backbone is blockchain. And what that allows you to do is essentially, I mean, you get the whole decentralization aspect. I think that's pretty core to what crypto is about, but it also allows you to build applications that have security as like a native function of it, or privacy. Ownership of digital assets is a key aspect of blockchain in general, right? With NFTs, well, you can build your application with that as like part of the core function, not as a add-on. So really like when you think about like how you combine all those key functions of blockchain, it allows a developer to build applications that they can't build in the Web 2 world, right? So you can build really cool applications that embed those features as like to like have an innovative application. So that's I think the easiest way to understand it is just don't think in like Solana or Ethereum terms. Think of like AWS, and then we're a decentralized version of that you can build really, really cool things that you can't build on AWS.
That's pretty cool. So Dfinity specifically, I know this was a concept that he created for, decentralized infinity. Can you maybe dive a bit deeper into that?
Yeah. So again, Dominic Williams is the visionary here, and there's a couple key things he like keyed in on. So Dfinity, it stands for decentralized infinity. The two aspects of that is like he wanted to create a protocol that was fully decentralized. You could host an application 100% on the protocol, so you don't have to build like, there's kind of what's called the decentralization theater, where you build a small part of your application on the blockchain, but then you host everything else on AWS. And so, how decentralized are you truly? So that's the decentralized part. Then the infinity is it has to scale, right? That's one of the cool things about the internet is it scales infinitely, right? Like there's never been a time where people are like, hey, look, Uber now came onto the internet, and because there's so many users using Uber, the internet has now shut down. Like that doesn't happen. So that was a key function of the internet computer, was to scale infinitely horizontally. I think one of the key components that we should touch on is the fact that Dfinity is a foundation. It's led by Dominic Williams. It was created to kickstart the internet computer. It is now the most major contributor to the internet computer, but it's not designed to be the only contributor. Any truly decentralized protocol has to be open so that anyone can participate in it. And so the internet computer is the actual protocol, and it's not governed by Dfinity. It's governed by a DAO. Anyone can participate in that DAO. Every single code update has to go through that DAO and get approved. So it's this really cool decentralized version of anyone who wanted to, I don't want to say compete with, but could either, contribute code to the code base, could actually go on, start coding it, and then submit their code changes to the DAO. And if they're approved, it gets implemented in the protocol.
What would you say then is the major, so I know Dfinity is the foundation. So how do ICP and Dfinity work together?
Yeah. So think of the governing body of the internet computer as that DAO. Think of Dfinity as just one of the players in that DAO. So Dfinity develops the code, and then submits that code as a proposal, any code update as a proposal to the DAO. But again, like at any point, the DAO doesn't have to vote alongside with Dfinity. The DAO could kick Dfinity completely out and say, we're never accepting your code updates again. Instead, we're going to go with a different organization, or you can do both organizations. So there's a clear delineation between Dfinity as a foundation, as a contributor of code to the internet computer, but then the internet computer itself is self-governed.
From a consumer perspective, for the DAO, like how would that work? Like how would I gain from that?
From a consumer perspective, like somebody who's using an app, I guess a good way to say that is a consumer of the internet, you don't really care that your website that you're visiting, let's say it's Facebook, you don't care if it's hosted on Amazon Web Services, its own their own servers, or really where the website's being served from. So I think most consumers probably won't care about the internet computer from that perspective. Instead, what they'll notice is, holy cow, I go to this one website and it does things that I don't get to see on other websites. Like I can have a gated community based on owning a token, and we can have our own token within our community that's just our thing. And really kind of, or I can host my data on this website, and I can feel fully secure that it's well protected. So from a consumer perspective, most people aren't going to really care that, hey, this whole protocol is governed by DAO. You're not going to care that an application is hosted on the internet computer, other than just that application does things that no other website that you've ever gone to does. If you are a DAO member, so anyone can become a DAO member by basically just buying the ICP token and staking it within the DAO. And so what that looks like then is on a daily basis, or multiple times a day, there's proposals for either code changes or parameter changes. And you can go on and vote yay or nay on those. A lot of people also do what's called liquid democracy. So like, I've got a full-time job. I don't have time to check all these proposals. I'm not even an expert, so I'm not quite sure why like I would want to vote yes or no on any given topic. You can actually delegate your vote to somebody who you trust or who you think represents your views. And then when that person votes, it votes for you as well. You can change that at any time. I'll say like a lot of people have, given their vote to Dfinity. So, when Dfinity votes, their vote, their vote will carry, like other DAO members will vote automatically in the way that Dfinity voted. And there's other organizations that have came out, like identified themselves as experts in a specific field, and people within the DAO are moving, giving their liquid democracy vote over to those organizations as well.
Okay, so maybe we can then go into this. My questions on this data and like obviously the decentralized aspect is more, privacy protection. That's a major issue. I mean, the real question is, though, isn't it too late? I feel like anyone who's had Facebook, anyone who's had Instagram, I feel like, everything's already out there. Like, isn't it? Like, it's a bit where I'm like, oh, I haven't been on for years, but I think it's anything ads, because the thing is, you get the targeted ads from just having conversations. Like you get these, like, so what would you say? I don't think everyone's going to agree to this, but for me personally, I find it's a bit too much, right? So do you think it's too late for like that data to be protected for an end user?
Yeah, whatever data is already out there, it's already out there. That's absolutely true. But I would say it's like this: if you're a drug addict, it wouldn't be right to say, well, isn't it too late, right? At some point, you clean up, and as you clean up, then every day after that gets a little bit better. I think that's probably the analogy that I would apply here. There's a lot of like original sins that we have that we don't realize it. Like even myself, I'm heavy into crypto, but I use Google as my login on various websites. What that allows, yeah, exactly. It's too easy. It's just way too easy. Yeah. And I will not change that until somebody creates an easier method that competes, right, from a user experience. What that allows Google to do, though, is it tracks me across all those websites, so the targeted ads can follow me around and all of that. Whether or not like that's a really, you can debate whether or not that's like a problem for the average person. But a good example of like how the internet computer is addressing that is you can have on the internet computer, you have an internet identity. It's almost like your Google login, except for it's done in a way that you can't track from application to application. So I don't have to, when I go to a website, like a good one is like Discover is a DSCVR is a like a Reddit like website on the internet computer. I don't even have to create an account with them. I can log in with my internet identity. That kind of already creates the account, but it's done in such a way that they don't know that me using my internet identity I'm also using it somewhere else. Like there's no way to track that internet identity across apps, but it gives me basically an account on every single application that was built on the internet computer.
So it's just like is the UX like the Google kind of like, is that what you would say, like for the experience? Like, does it feel like Google login, like login with Google?
I would say it's
everywhere.
Yeah, I would say it's actually even better because it's all tied to my biometric data. So for me, I've enabled it on my
Mm,
cell phone where I can log into any internet computer application using my thumbprint on my phone. And then on my computer, I have to I use the thumbprint on my computer as well on my laptop. So
nice.
from a user experience, yeah, it actually is much, I'd say, better. Although Google login is, especially if you're trusting Chrome with your passwords, which now I'm revealing too many secrets about myself. But at that point, that's a really good user experience. But the
Oh
login
no.
is even better.
Okay. Well, what happens, like hypothetically, if you lose your phone at your laptop? What happens to all
If
of that?
Yeah, then it's just like losing your hardware. I do have a seed phrase as well. It is important to make sure you have multiple devices because if I lost my phone, I can go on my laptop. I can say here's my new phone and tie that new phone to my account, to my internet identity. If I lost my
Hmm.
phone and my laptop, let's say I don't know, like I was traveling. I'm not sure the situation where I would actually lose both of these devices at the same time. But
I'm
let's
asking because it's happened. Like I've spoken to people who have traveled and at the airport, like just their backpack would get snatched or like handbag gets snatched and
mm,
everything's in there, right? So you
yeah.
never know.
So then you need your C phrase at that point. Or I mean, and again, I have multiple. It's not just my phone and my laptop. I have multiple devices
Fair. But I'm
on my
saying
internet.
as
Yeah,
another user, maybe some users don't have both or multiple,
yeah.
sorry.
And we're kind of getting into the there. So yeah, so that's a great point. And we're getting into that territory where like we're talking about this because we're both into crypto. My mom is never going to like I'm never going to explain to her like, "Mom, you really need to set up a second device in case you lose your phone because this is how it's tied." And did you even write down that seed phrase, when you created the
Yeah.
account? Like that's a user. We still got to get better on that. I think as an industry, as a full on
As a
industry,
whole,
that's
yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree more. I mean, that's I think the one major thing we're lacking because even not even parents, like my parents, I've given up on trying to explain. I've given up, but for like even friends, people that I meet who are not in the industry. And obviously we're working in the industry, so it's our job to consistently like keep to up to date. So
Mhm.
even just people who are in completely different industry, very curious, it's like it is a full-time job to kind of like learn about it and get to know it because even for them, like some conversations I've had, I've found that people are oblivious to how much, you know, data has been given out, how little
Mhm.
protection, their privacy like has. So it is very interesting for something to exist that actually, is a solution to that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly that. As an industry, I think we need that, like, you know,
Mhm.
awareness of, look, we're not trying to appeal to you and I, people who are already in
Mhm.
the industry, which is I think where we are, where we're at is like, hey, somebody who's into crypto, they'll write down their seed phrase and they'll keep it in a safe spot.
Yeah.
But we need to get into the mindset of like, hey, if you want the other 90% of the world to actually be involved in this, I will say one of the things I believe is things like if I talk to my friends and I say, "Are you aware of like how much Google knows about you?" They would probably respond, "I don't really care, honestly. Like what I trust, like basically, like I don't see the value in not trusting Google. There's just too much upside to that." And
Mhm.
and I would honestly like that's a perfectly. I think 90% of non-crypto people would kind of fall in that camp. And and in my mindset, it's not so much that we need to convince them that look, you need to control your data, but it's rather give them tooling or give them products that actually provides value to their data, right? So if I could protect my data and then I could actually sell that to specific people and actually monetize it and
Mhm.
extract that value, I might care a lot more. Or if people kind of got convinced of like, hey, my data is secure here, they might be willing to put more information about themselves on the internet. And so it's
Yeah.
like those apps I think are the important, the mass market things of getting to where like data security itself is not a product that people are interested in. But like what can that function lead you in terms of like app development and app innovation that actually is meaningful?
So I know we've talked a lot about the data protection and everything about privacy. Getting a little bit paranoid now, but it's fine. Let's talk about another massively trending subject, because I know that you guys are quite, you guys are working on something in that. AI. I know that's been trending for a very long time. And I wanted to know if you guys could, if you could share a little bit about your next gen AI product.
Yeah, actually, I just 2 months ago presented at AI4 in Las Vegas. It was an industry AI conference on this exact topic about how is blockchain and AI intersecting. We have a couple it's still early stage, but there's a couple really cool things going on the internet computer. And I think the easiest way to kind of understand it is, again, the internet computer is like an extension of the internet. AI is, I mean, everything living on AI is is on the internet at this point. Basically, AI can go to the internet computer pretty easily, but there's a few specific use cases that I think are getting a lot more traction because it leverages that blockchain aspect of like, why would you put an AI model on the blockchain? One of those is digital ownership. So data has never become more important. When you think about like, I mean, you just ask Stack Overflow about how important their data was when ChatGPT basically extracted it and then created a front end for interacting with that data that didn't involve Stack Overflow. Now Stack Overflow is in a lot of trouble. Same thing with Reddit. So like having control over your data and being able to monetize it is essentially just like NFTs on steroids. And so there's companies who are exploring how they can facilitate creating almost like the NFT of data sets. So you own data, you can put it on the internet computer, and then you can license that out in a frictionless manner. That's one aspect. I mentioned the internet computer is controlled by a DAO. There's individual applications that are controlled by their own DAOs, which are usually made up of their users. You could have an AI actually controlled fully by a DAO, as in the DAO controls what data sets are used to train it, how the model is validated, how the model is tested. They could control the inference engine. So you could actually have like DAO controlled AI. I always like to think of it from the perspective of, if you've heard of the alignment problem in AI, is how you get AI to align to human values. One of the things that we're not talking about as humans is whose human values are we aligning AI to, right? Because if Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, are we aligning it to his values? Because those values are going to be a lot different than maybe like a diverse value set from across the world. Well, the only way to actually ensure that is to have a DAO that it has diversity built into it, control the AI. So that's another aspect where I think that's a lot of research should be done. And, as you think about like the high level, like impact of AI on the world, I think blockchain can play a role in like, look, we got to make sure that like there's not like an AGI that is controlled by a centralized unit, because especially if that centralized unit is operating to maximize profits, that's going to have some impacts on society.
No, that's a very valid point. What would be your stance then on where do you think this, like how far do you think that this is all going to go with AI? God.
I have no idea, and I worry that we will actually know if we've crossed a line.
It's always like that. It's always when it's too late.
Yeah. It feels like it's like nighttime. We know there's a cliff somewhere there where once we go too far, we've gone too far, but you don't know where too far is until you're falling down the cliff. I know ChatGPT is an amazing product. I love Bard. I've been using Bard a lot. These LLMs are like a phenomenal product. I guess one of the key things is like AI has been around for like 20, 30 years and it's just these LLMs have now opened the mind of like, actually, this is a user interface for AI. And so when you combine the LLM with like an expert AI system, like, I don't know, like if you're trying to open up a restaurant in a city and you want to know where exactly should I open this restaurant up because I want it to be successful. I think now we're at the point where you could have an AI bot that actually can, you can interact with and ask a bunch of questions and it'll say like, look, here's the retail space you want to go out and rent right now. Here's the contact information of that person. Here's what you should expect to spend per month, all of that kind of stuff. And I think that's just like one small example of a million different ways that AI is going to proliferate, and we probably won't even really notice or care. Like it'll just be like the way like Google, like it used to be if you now I'm going to date myself, but if you wanted to do a search, you went to Yahoo and it was like categories. You're like, oh, I'm interested in, I don't know, topic, whatever topic it is. And you had to kind of like go through like category trees. And then Google came on.
Yeah. But the thing is like for chat, don't you find that, you know, people have a lot of people, I know they say like work smarter, not harder, but don't you think that people are getting a lot lazier now when it comes to this chat GPT thing? Because for me, for example, like from a communications perspective, like you can tell when something has like no human element to it. But obviously as it develops, they're going to start somehow adding that in there. So because there's thousands, because there's so many AI products and projects that have launched, and like thousands in the last, like, I think in less than a year. And I don't even know like what, you know, I've heard of several, but I haven't, obviously we don't know what every single one is, and they're popping up like every other day.
Right.
So I'm just quite curious, and you know, because you're a data and analytics guy yourself. So I thought maybe you might have some value input here.
I would say in terms of the laziness comment, I would say as somebody in data and analytics and recognizing that Bard can now replicate like a junior level data analyst. So, you know, like maybe I don't need to hire somebody. Instead, I can just use Bard. That's a little bit scary knowing that, hey, this technology is approaching my level skill, and you know, you're a content creator, so there's always going to be a human touch that's needed in content creation. In data and analytics, that's not the case. So it's kind of actually made me have to work, I guess, harder to keep ahead of the AI.
Keep relevant. Yeah, well, I guess it's different for different people, but I mean, even like, let's say hypothetically, like university students never have to write themselves another essay again at this point. There's a lot of like, you know, AI support that can basically do it for them.
I mean, there's definitely a question of, is this the right thing for society? And I almost think that question is more or less pointless in the sense that the technology is coming either way, and there's like no way to, there's like the business incentives are too strong to prevent further AI development. And so it's almost more like, how do we restructure around this technology rather than should we stop the technology?
As Dfinity, what are your goals? What's your vision for the next 5 years?
If you look back in the last 5 years, ChatGPT aside, because that is truly innovative, but there's really not a lot of innovation in the internet, right? Like the biggest thing to come to the internet was TikTok, and that's really just YouTube with shorter videos and a more
which
viral.
YouTube has now launched.
Right. Yeah. So that's the point in the internet's life cycle. We've kind of hit this, you know, this point where there's not a lot of innovation. And I think the internet computer is this next wave of introducing apps. So I guess where I would say I see the internet computer in 5 years is really almost like, you know, if in 2005, somebody had said, what's the internet going to be for? And you would have said like Google and that kind of stuff. You would have never said Uber, right? You would never said like, oh, it's going to replace the taxi industry. It's going to replace the hotel industry with Airbnb. And I think that we're now at that point where like what happens in the next 3 or 4 or 5 years, we don't really quite understand because they have an innovative tool and what people do with that is unpredictable. I do think, me personally, I think one of the impacts the internet computer is going to have is a shift back towards Bitcoin and building on top of Bitcoin within the crypto industry. On the internet computer, we have a Bitcoin node literally running on the protocol, and so you can sign transactions on the Bitcoin network. So there's a direct like integration between the two protocols. It's pretty new this year, and my gut feeling is that that's going to unleash basically everything that's happened on Ethereum, DeFi, NFTs, you name it. I think that now there's going to be developers who say, look, with the internet computer, I can build that exact same thing, but on a cryptocurrency that has 2.5 times the liquidity, right? I think that's about where Bitcoin is in terms of ETH. Or if you're like on a different, an altcoin, not Ethereum, you're going to look at it and say, look, I can get 10x the liquidity. I can get 20x the liquidity, plus the brand recognition of Bitcoin. I do think like that is probably one thing that I think our industry is going to move towards in the next couple of years.
So that's really cool what you guys are doing with Bitcoin. Are you guys doing that with any other chains?
Yeah. So that same design, basically, of look, let's actually do a native integration so that you don't need a middleman between Bitcoin and ICP. We're doing that. We're doing that right now with Ethereum. At that point, then it
Okay.
unlocks Ethereum. So there'll be a token on the internet computer called CK-ETH, where it'll actually be a protocol token that you can use it just like Ethereum, except for it'll be one-to-one. It'll be one-to-one paired with Ethereum, but you can use it with instant finality, cheap transaction fees. The idea of like gas fees will, I think, go away within crypto because of innovations like this. But also beyond that, then any app that is built on Ethereum now obviously can communicate with the internet computer, as well as communicate with the Bitcoin blockchain. So at that point, then ICP becomes kind of like a middleman between Bitcoin and Ethereum. And then going beyond that, basically the technology that we're deployed with Bitcoin, we're about to deploy with Ethereum. That same technology can work with pretty much any other cryptocurrency. So you could have like a path from Ethereum to Doge if you wanted to, and it'll just be the Internet Computer Protocol itself is kind of serving as that multi-chain host.
I'm curious to see with the Internet Computer, the ICP as a whole, because I know you guys have 15 hubs total, 5 by the end of the year, 5 more. Do you think that you guys, I presume you got the ICP hub or the ICP group would have, I'd say in the next 5 years, would you think they'd have hubs all around the world? Is that?
Yeah, I think that's an easy prediction to make. Already having 15, having 5 more on the way. So ICP hubs is really like our grassroots effort, right? To like get down into the community, into like local in real life communities. And yeah, I would hope that, I mean, the idea of there even being a hub 5 years from now would be ridiculous, because there's just hubs everywhere. And so it'd be like, having, I don't know, a middle school in your town is kind of, there's a hub in your town, and there was a life before we had ICP hubs. I think that's 5 years from now where we're at.
I look forward to it. I know you had some videos prepared for us, so thank you so much for that. Do you want to touch on them before we reel them in?
Yeah. So we had talked about, so we'll bring in the internet identity video. That'll be how to set up your internet identity, which again gets you access, if you want to use it, it gets you access into every internet computer application. And then we talked on staking ICP for the DAO. We'll have a video on how to stake on the NNS.
And what do people buy the token? Just out of curiosity.
You can buy the token on any exchange. Binance, Coinbase.
So I mean, for staking. So where can you stake it?
Oh yeah, so if you buy it on an exchange, and then in the video it'll walk you through exactly that process. It's like a 30-second or 1 minute process of, after you've bought the ICP token, how do you now stake it? You'll just send it to you'll send it to your NNS wallet, and then there's a front end app where it'll walk you through pretty easily on how to stake it. This was a lot of fun, Dina. So I really appreciate you having me on, and phenomenal host.
And an even better guest. Thank you so much for joining us, Kyle. It was very, very great to see you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And now the videos.
To stake ICP utility tokens, you'll first need to buy some ICP. You can buy ICP at any one of these exchanges. Once you have purchased some ICP, you can start the process of staking and voting by creating an internet identity and navigating through the network nervous system to host a neuron and stake tokens. Creating an internet identity and an NNS account. First, navigate directly to the NNS tab. Here, you'll be welcomed with a screen prompting you to sign in with Internet Identity. Upon clicking this, you'll be directed to a page prompting you to sign in with or create an Internet Identity. If you're just getting started, then you'll need to create an identity anchor by selecting Create an Anchor. You'll need to provide your device name, then click Next. Upon entering the device name, your device will prompt you to allow identity.ico.app to use either a dedicated security key or an authentication method of the device you're using. Once you grant access, you'll be redirected to solve a CAPTCHA and asked to authenticate once more before you're presented with your newly created Internet Identity Anchor Number. We strongly suggest that you record your Internet Identity Anchor Number, as this is the number that you will need to enter to authenticate to dApps running on the IC. Since you are registering for the first time, you can also choose to enable some recovery mechanisms, either with your seed phrase or with an external security key. We highly recommend storing your seed phrase somewhere safe, in the case that you lose access to your account. After that, you'll be redirected to the Network Nervous System dApp. The Network Nervous System, or NNS, is the staking and voting system that governs the Internet Computer Protocol. On the main screen, you should see a long number called a wallet address and the total amount of ICP in your account. The wallet address is the number that you need to use to transfer ICP tokens to your NNS account. Staking ICP in a neuron to earn rewards. As long as you have at least one ICP on your NNS account, you're eligible to create a neuron and stake ICP for rewards. You can use the page Mine Neuron Staking of the Network Nervous System dApp to create and manage your neurons. Neurons are required to participate in governance and vote on proposals for the Internet Computer, which will earn you your rewards. To create a neuron, click on the Mine Neuron Staking tab and click Stake Neurons. Choose the account you'd like to stake ICP from, enter the number of ICP utility tokens you'd like to stake, then click Create. The minimum stake required to create a neuron is 1 ICP utility token. Set the dissolve delay to your preferred number of years for staking. You can configure the period of time the stake is locked for, from 6 months to a maximum of 8 years. Click Set Delay and confirm. You can set up your neuron to follow other named neurons under specific umbrella topics of proposals by choosing the neuron that you would like to mimic for topics like governance, exchange rate, and more. It's important to note that if you close this window before confirming your dissolve delay, your ICP will remain in an unlocked neuron, which is ineligible to vote. From this point, you have the option to either disperse the ICP back into your account or transform it into a locked neuron by setting a dissolve delay over 6 months long. Once you've been redirected back to your neurons page, you should now see your newly created neuron with your staked ICP. Once you have locked the stake and created a neuron, you'll have to wait 6 months before you're able to vote on proposals. By clicking on and opening the page for an individual neuron, you'll see a plethora of options for how to control your neuron. For instance, here you'll be able to increase the stake or the dissolve delay of your neuron. You can also click Start Dissolving to start dissolving ICP utility tokens out of your neuron. However, the higher your dissolve delay, the more rewards you will receive when voting in the NNS. You can use the Vote on Proposals tab to see and vote on any active proposals. Click on Vote on Proposals using the left navigation, and you'll be greeted with a list of any open proposals on various topics. In order to earn voting rewards, your neuron needs to vote on these proposals. Be sure to use Topics, Reward Status, and Proposal Status to filter which proposals you'd like to see and vote on. Click on any of the proposals listed to view more information about the proposal, such as the status of the proposal, the number of votes that were cast to adopt or reject the proposal, and any votes cast by your neurons. You can choose to have your neuron follow another neuron for certain topics or proposals automatically, but you can also still vote manually on any proposal. When you cast your manual vote, you override the vote following feature for that proposal. Every day, the NNS calculates a fixed neuron reward relative to the amount of ICP staked, among other factors, which it then divides among all eligible neurons according to their relative claims. For neurons that have participated in all votes, their relative claim derives proportionally from the number of ICP tokens locked inside, and the dissolve delay remaining before the ICP tokens will be released. This reward will be dispersed to node owners respectively for their contribution to the Internet Computer ecosystem.
I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for more Decoded.